So in this lesson, we're going to look at our pages, our page types, and the way the navigation works in Squarespace. Now, the page types is something that could be potentially a little confusing. I think that's because Squarespace have progressively rolled out updates, one on top of the other. So it's not the most intuitive part of Squarespace, but I promise you it does make sense. So let's begin with the navigation. Now, if you look at the sidebar, I visited the pages section, and this is divided up into two parts. The first part, we have the heading main navigation, and you'll notice any content that we place up here, it also appears in our navigation, in the header of a website. There's another section called not linked, and our homepage is one of these pages at the moment, and anything in this section here, while it's a page that can be visited, can be linked to, it won't appear in the navigation along the top. So to demonstrate the way that works, if I drag our home section up to the top of our main navigation, you'll see that now appears in the navigation in our header. It's underlined to highlight that that's the page we're currently viewing, and it's no longer in our not linked section. Now, I didn't have to click save to make that happen. So this is something that actually happens in real time when you're dragging pages around in the navigation. So that's a little scary. At the same time, it's really easy to undo and to simply drag it back if I wasn't happy with what I had done. So I think I will place home up at the start of our navigation. By default, the logo acts as a home button. I think a lot of visitors are familiar with that now, but some still like to see home in the navigation. So I'm going to keep it there for the sake of keeping them happy. So some of this demo content you'll decide to keep, some of it you won't need. So I would suggest clicking through. So I'm going to click on About and just see if I like this demo content, if I'd rather create something from scratch. So the About page, yeah, maybe there's something I could work with there. I might change the theme of this from something light to something a bit darker, but I can keep the About. If I click on Instructors, and you'll notice once I've clicked a page, that little demo icon disappears. That's because if you click on a page and you decide not to click this little trash can to the left to delete it, I think Squarespace assumes you might want to keep that content, so it removes that little demo reminder. Our instructors, I don't love that. I think we could do better. So I'm going to click the trash can to the left and delete. And once you click confirm, then that's it. The page is gone. But you will notice on deleting my first page, this little section appears here, deleted pages. And if you click that, you do actually have 30 days before those are permanently deleted. So a little bit of a safety net for any deleted content there. I'll click classes next. It's quite a simple layout. I don't think I need to keep that. Location. I might keep something like that for location, but I'll delete that for now. There's some other good options for contact and location pages. And then a blog. The blog comes with usually the first few posts as demo content, and the blog is the first of our page types that are different. So if I go back for a moment, the home and the about page, they have the same icon, and these are regular page types. What that means is, if I click on edit mode, these are what Squarespace calls regular pages, and they're divided into sections. Each section can have blocks floating on it. Each section can be given its own color theme. So that's what it defines as a regular page. If I go to the blog, you'll see this has its own unique sidebar. It doesn't work if I enter edit mode in sections. It's a single section and it gives you options to manage your blog posts. So I'm not going to dive in any real detail into the blog feature of Squarespace. I think it's very intuitive and you can probably fiddle your way through configuring that. And as I said, it gives you a few posts to start with so you can have a look at the way those have been set up. But the blog will reflect any site style changes you've made to the rest of the website. And as you make your way through customizing it, you'll see that you can choose a few options that will apply either to all the blog posts or to each of them individually, such as the colors, the fonts that are used for different sections. But have a go. You don't need my input to help you through setting the blog pages up. So we'll focus on things that are a little more design oriented. So if I wanted to add a new page or page type, now we've deleted down, we've got just the home, the about, and I'm actually going to delete the blog. My brewery is not going to have any kind of blog feed. If you click the plus button, either next to main navigation to add it so that it will start out up here or not linked, you'll see there are quite a large number of options. So under pages, this is what I mentioned Squarespace calls a regular page type, but you then have these different page types which it categorizes as collections. You've also got folders and links. So we'll start with the options under collections. The store, again, I think that's a little beyond the scope of this tutorial, but you can very easily create and customize your own e-commerce store. It's super intuitive, easy to use. So that's not a regular page, that's a special page type, and that's for the purposes of setting that store up, being able to categorize products, and lots of other features it has. Portfolio, that's a special page type, and it's comprised of portfolio items. So that's something that's really useful for photographers, I guess for designers as well. And you select from a few templates. And this serves almost as an index page of sorts. So very similar to the blog functionality in Squarespace. Each of your projects that's nested here, it's effectively its own page, which you can completely customize. But when you come back to that portfolio page, you see a thumbnail and a heading representing each of them. You can drag and drop to change the order. So you can imagine for photographers or designers, if you wanted to present your different projects, this is a really nice feature rather than manually trying to create and link to different pages for each of them. So our brewery certainly doesn't need a portfolio. So I'm going to delete that page type. I'll click the plus again. Events, again, that's a little beyond the scope of this class, but that's a very useful feature. So they've got some options there for scheduling events. If you were creating a website for a band, for example, and you wanted to include tour dates, there's quite nice features that enable you to do that. And videos, this is a new one that actually allows you to sell on-demand content. So if you wanted to hide some tutorial videos, for example, behind a paywall, you're able to do that here. But two special page types that I more frequently use are the folder and the link option. So if I start by adding a folder, this literally, it just helps you to organize your site navigation. Now, annoyingly, at the moment in Squarespace, you can't nest one page inside another without using a folder. So what I mean by that, if I give this the title gallery, I can drag the about page so that it sits under the gallery. And if I use the navigation at the top, you'll see when I hover over gallery, it now shows about page as sitting within that. I could also grab this little demo page here and put that inside. So now under our gallery section, we have 2 pages. But I couldn't place, if I remove about and I remove book a class, I couldn't place book a class as a page that sits under about. Now this is quite irritating. It's something I hope they update in future, but at the moment, if you want to nest pages, you've got to use this folder function. So that's what the folder does. That enables you to organize your pages to sit within a section. And lastly, you have a link option. So this is useful for something we'll come to as a more advanced feature towards the end of the class. Anchor links. So a link you would click and it would whiz you down to a certain spot on the page. It's very useful for that. Or you could create a link to something external to your Squarespace site. So it could link to an external, a calendar app that you use. It could link to, I don't know why you would place them in your main navigation. It could be a link to one of your social media channels, although I think there's a better way of doing that. So that's the link option. And once you click link, you literally give it a title, which will be shown in the navigation. And then you enter the location of that link. Now you can use this to link internally. To do that, if you just begin with a / and underneath the pages you have comprising your website so far, they pop up in a list. So it's quite easy to select one of those if you wanted to, or you can enter a full external URL. Now, before we finish this lesson, speaking about URLs, how do you determine the URL for your pages? This again isn't the most intuitive. You might think it simply uses the page name. It doesn't. There's a separate setting for this. So if you click on the little cogwheel icon for any of your pages, you'll see the page settings appears. And some of the first options are a page title, and that's what's going to appear at the top of the browser window. A navigation title, that's what will appear in the site navigation. And finally, the URL, and that's where you're able to customize that. So you could, for example, change that to About Us. That will have updated the URL. So if I put About Us and hit enter, you'll see that would take us to that specific page. So that's quite useful. Quite often you'd want to enter a specific URL, maybe for marketing purposes, or at the client's request if they want to link to certain pages externally. So that covers the pages, the page types, and the navigation. Next, we're going to really dive into customizing the content that we have on the website. So we're fairly happy with the style. There are still some tweaks and changes we might make to that later on, but the next lesson we'll begin customizing that content.